Well, hello everyone. Last week I gave you the first component to how to live a life of joy, a life of gozo, which was discovering your God-given adventure. Well, today I'm going to give you the second component, which is finding grace amidst your crisis. I'm convinced that this second step is the crucial step for you to truly live a life of joy. That's going to then turn into living a life of purpose, to be able to accomplish your dreams, to be able to enjoy your life the way God meant it to be. I really hope that you will take time to watch this second video and to enjoy the 10 steps in order for you to find grace amidst your crisis. What is grace? Grace is being able to look back at those tough moments in your life and saying, if not for the grace of God, I would not be where I am today. Enjoy the rest of this video. And after this episode, be sure that you sign up for the conference coming up July 11th called the Living on Gozo Street Conference. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of this episode. Last week, I spoke to you about how to discover your God-given adventure. Make sure you check that episode out. But today I want to give you 10 steps to finding grace amidst your crisis. Number one is realize you've been rescued. It's so important that when you look at the crises in your life, whether it's a financial crisis, a health crisis, or something in your family, that you realize that you've been rescued. Look back on your life and realize and think and meditate. Put your mind on the moments when God rescued you from despair. Just as the little boy Moses in the Bible, he was put in a basket, and you could have thought that he was going to be killed. He was going to be dead in just a matter of days. But by God's grace, an Egyptian princess rescued Moses from the river and gave him a second chance. Think of the moments in your life when you've been rescued. Number two is your name is special. It's so important that you realize that your name is not an accident. That literally what your name is, whether your name is Frank or Carlos, Martha or Esther, your name is unique. And that speaks to the point of uniqueness. You're created in the image of God. You're not an accident. Your name means love. Your name is special to God. Value your name. Value your family name. Value your history. For Moses, his name reminded him daily of God's provision. The name Moses means rescued from the water. Every time that Moses would think of his name, he remembered how God had rescued him from his crisis. Number three is you have been blessed. It's so important that you realize that God has blessed you, that God has given you not only a name, not only has He rescued you, but He created you for blessing. He has given you so much. He has given you so many opportunities in life. You may feel like you don't have many. You may feel like your life is not blessed. In fact, you feel like it's cursed. But that's not true. You've been blessed by God. Again, Moses, taken from the river by an Egyptian princess, and God put him in a place of privilege in the palace of the Pharaoh. He dressed an amazing way. He learned new languages. He ate the finest of foods. He learned the best of education of the time. Moses' life was blessed. Even though Satan had a plan to destroy this young man, God had a plan to bless him. In the same way, God has blessed you. It's not just that He's going to bless you. It's the fact that your life, even today, no matter what it's like, is a blessing. Number four is listen to the signs. You know, all around us, when we're listening, there are signs that point us towards God, that point us towards the blessing of God, that remind us that we are not alone, that we are loved, that we are cared for, that God is for us and not against us. For young Moses, Those signs were everywhere. Remember the burning bush? Remember how powerful that moment was for him when he faced this amazing miracle and he looked at it, and what a powerful presence that was. God was in that moment. God was in that sign. It was a sign for Moses to trust God, to never doubt the presence of God. In the same way, look for the signs. Take time to think about those symbols, those icons, those special things that happen that seem accidental, but they are not. They are set and put there by God. In my life, those signs have been so obvious. I remember a time I went to a retreat and I sat in a bench I had sat on many times. But this one time, I noticed this statue of Joseph and baby Jesus. And the Christ child was looking up to the Father on his tippy toes. And the Father's eyes were fixed on the baby. And that moment was symbolic of how God's eyes were upon me. And that no matter how distracted I may get or how lonely I may feel, the eyes of God are upon my life. And I can get on my own tippy toes and look to God and know that He is there for me. Look for the icons. Look for the signs in your life. Number 5, accept your mistakes. I think that we sometimes don't find grace in the middle of our crisis because we run from our mistakes, or we don't even like to admit our mistakes. I'm not talking about living in your mistake or constantly rehashing your failures, but you and me, have to realize that sometimes we fall. That is a part of life. Accept those moments of failure. Think of the times where you have hit bottom. Learn from your mistakes. Surrender your mistakes to God. Give them to Jesus. Tell Him, Lord, take away that guilt. Take away that shame. For Moses, even though he was blessed and rescued by God, he made mistakes. At one point, he killed someone in his own family. He ran away from God. He hit a rock in anger. There were many moments in the story of Moses where he made fatal mistakes, but God was still present. But the important thing is that they are recorded for us in the scriptures so that we would identify with Moses' mistakes. We all make mistakes. Don't live in that mistake, but don't run away from them. Accept them, sit with them, and give them to God. Number 7, remember that God has called you for a purpose. You and I are not here by accident. You're not here just simply to live 40, 50, 70 years and then just go away. You are designed with and in the image of God. You are designed in the image of God for a reason, for a purpose. Many people struggle to discover what that purpose is. They have lost their sense of adventure and risk and faith. But it doesn't change the fact that God has put gifts and talents and skills and connections and relationships, and you've learned from your mistakes. You've learned from the blessing. You remember how God has rescued you, and that all of those things are a part of shaping your purpose. For Moses, God called him, in spite of all his mistakes, to the greatest adventure of all, to rescue his people from slavery. What an amazing purpose Moses had. He didn't dwell in his mistakes. He found grace in his crisis, remembering that God had called him to be the savior of his people. God has called you for something amazing. Remember your purpose. Write down your call. Tell everyone what your dream is, and let God strengthen you so that you can live out your God-given purpose. Number 8, pick up your stick. Pick up those tools in your life that are going to enable you to fight the good fight. You can't do this on your own. Pick up those resources that are all around you, of people, of connections, of networks, of coaches, of education, of the things that life has taught you. All those things are there for a purpose. Remember King David? All he had were stones in his hand, but that was enough. he defeated the enemy, Goliath, just with those simple stones. Moses, remember how God provided for Moses a staff, a rod that at first glimpse, Moses could have said, "What is this, God? This is nothing. How can I fight the Egyptian pharaohs and his armies with this?" God said, "Throw that down." And it turned into a snake, and it devoured all the other snakes. God was giving resources and tools to Moses to accomplish the good work. He gave him purpose and tools in the middle of his crisis. God has given you resources. Take up the shield of faith. Put on the helmet of salvation. Take up the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. These are your tools. Call a friend and let them know, you are my tool. You are my resource. You are a blessing in my life for a purpose. Number 9, expect miracles. When we're in the middle of crisis, we think that there are no miracles left for us. But that is so not true. Expect a miracle today, tomorrow, this very moment. The fact that you're watching this video could be that miracle. Every time that you listen to the voice of God, every time that something amazing happens in your life, you never know how that very moment can be the next step towards your greatest miracle. Expect a miracle. Don't live in your past. Don't live in that failure of 2 years ago or even 2 days ago. Expect a miracle. And what is a miracle? Something you cannot do yourself. Something that is divine. Something that you have no explanation for. For Moses, there were so many miracles. Most of all, the opening of the Red Sea. Can you imagine? There he was in front of this massive body of water, feeling desperate, trapped. My life is over, Moses said. I have 1 million people around me. How are we going to ever cross this ocean, God? Plus, behind me, there are horses and chariots, and they are here to kill me. But God said, that rod, remember that tool, Moses? Raise it up. And now pray to me and expect a miracle. And it says that a wind came from the north and parted the sea. And the people, 1 million people with Moses at the front, were able to walk on dry land through the Red Sea. And then once they crossed, and as the chariots began to also go through the ocean, the waters folded and killed the enemies. God performed a miracle for Moses. God is doing something amazing in your life. Don't think that your miracles are over. God is still doing amazing miracles. He is a God of miracles. Don't take control. Don't plan everything in your life. Make room for the miracles of God. And lastly, number 10, the last step on how to find grace in the middle of your crisis is to expect the glory of God. Look for the glory of God. You know, at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about God. It's about putting your faith in the hands of God. Many people today, they try to find their significance in their jobs, in their careers, in their bodies, in who they marry, in their possessions. But true significance comes when we see God face to face, when we experience His presence, when the glory of God literally shines upon our face. For Moses, it says that towards the end of his life, he went up to the mountain and he said, God, I just have one request. Let me see your glory. Can you imagine? And it says that God passed in front of Moses, but because God's face and power was so amazing, all Moses could see was the back of God. And it says that Moses came down from that experience with a face as an angel, radiant, filled with light and with hope and with the glory of God. Take time to be alone with God. Take time to go to places where you meet and feel the presence of God. That could be the ocean. It could be a Sunday morning. It could be a song. It could be you with friends. It could be you reading the scriptures alone. take time to experience the magnitude and the greatness of the glory of God. The glory of God reminds me of the ocean, because every time I go, I am so small compared to the power and the beauty of the ocean. That's how God's presence is to us. He reminds us of his love, but he also reminds us how much greater his ways are than our ways. He reminds us of how his thoughts are so much higher than our thoughts. And that is what we need. We don't need more of our ideas. We have plenty of that. We need more of God and his glory in our lives. I want to encourage you. Find grace in the middle of your crisis. Don't be overwhelmed by your crisis. Accept it. Know that there are mistakes. You can't run away from your mistakes. We can't run away from those moments of crisis when we hit the wall, when we hit bottom, when we lose our business, when we get ill, when we go through a divorce. But know that in the middle of your crisis, there is grace. There is peace. What does grace mean? It means looking back and saying, if not for God, I would not be where I am today. That is grace. And when you experience that grace in your life, then you are able to live a life of joy, which that then turns into living your purpose, being able to help other people and accomplish the goals that you have in your creative pursuits, in your business, in your career, at home as a mom, in the business world as an entrepreneur. When we remember the grace of God in our crisis, we truly are living a life of joy, truly living a life of contentment in our souls and gratitude in our circumstances. We truly are able to live a life of peace and joy and happiness, a life of what we like to call here, a life of gozo. Hey, this is Trig. Did you like this episode? There are 3 things that you can do to make sure that you stay on track with gozo living and with this message of joy. First, subscribe to this channel. Subscribe so that you can every week get a notification so that you know when these videos are ready for you to enjoy. Second, go to my website and sign up for the free article that I wrote for Leadership Journal called High Anxiety: How Anxiety No Longer Defines Me. And then third, also on my website, sign up to get my free newsletter that comes out every week that has funny jokes to give us joy, that has some of the content on conferences and articles that I'm writing that are not in this channel. You can click on the subscribe button right here on this video. Go to my website, check it out. Most of all, I am so proud of you. I am with you. I am cheering you on. I am thankful for what you're doing to live a life of joy, adventure, overcoming crisis, and discovering who you love. Thanks so much for watching. Your gozo friend. I will see you next time.